Hey, I'm Sam, and so I've done something different with with this video. It's two videos. I made one on Wednesday and one today, and they're connected. And so I didn't want to put them out separately because my thoughts will move on next week anyway, and I'll just be waiting to put out videos. So I'd rather do it as it happens. So yeah, I talk about honesty, truth, that terrifying word, truth, and I talk about power, and how disconnected from the power of our presence we are when we embody this idea that there's something wrong, there's something broken in us. So yeah, I might do this more often. Let me know if you think it works, because it's much easier for me to just keep my camera with me and just talk to myself as I'm walking, and then maybe put together a few videos at a time at the end of the week. Okay, so I hope you find some value in this. Remember, I'm work in progress and just working it out as I go. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Hello. Hello. Hey, I'm Sam, and this is Baloo, and he's a bit bonkers, so I can't let him off the lead because he'll just go and won't come back. But it's a 10-meter lead though, so he can still do zoomies when he wants to. So I have been blessed with a still day, freezing cold, but no wind. Blue sky ish, in patches anyway. He's gorgeous. So we're going to make our way back down the hill and share a few thoughts. It's funny, you know, somebody wrote a comment yesterday, lovely comment, and they used words that I was going to use in my next video, this one, because I wanted to talk about honesty. And they said that once you start to realise what you really feel and you're honest with yourself, there's no looking away anymore. And they also said that they were in a distant co-regulation with me, which is lovely. Because, you know, what it means really is that we're all changing together. I might be doing it publicly, but we're all together in this. And it is a metaphysical conversation. So it doesn't matter how far apart we are, or the fact that we're communicating, oh, where's he going? Through the ether. Come on. We're in it. So I'll keep this short. I don't want to waffle. I know when I start waffling because I start to repeat myself. So this might end abruptly. Yeah, honesty and truth. You know, I think that, you know, I keep saying over and over and over again that the path of healing, the path back to our self, through all the confusion and the overcompensations that we make in trying to be someone we're not, pretending and seeking validation and manipulating others' perception and looking for control, always looking outside ourselves, just to feel safe, really. Whereas none of that's necessary when you rediscover the truth within you, and that truth is found in the wound, in the heartbreak. And like I said last video, I didn't really know what I actually felt, because I just thought I was angry, I was in despair and anguish and just very unstable all of my life. And I'm in my mid-50s. I spent a life of desperation and chaos. And so to come back is to realise what all of that is masking and compensating for, and that is the intense heartbreak of the child that I was. And there is the truth. There is the truth of what I feel. There is the truth of who I am. So when I said in the last video, you know, you are the abused child, I meant no offence to anybody, because I know that that could be a very triggering statement. I mean, that's part of our history. Who we are is not our experiences. Come here. What are you doing? Who we are is not our experiences, but that child and the child's experiences are a huge part of us, and it's the part that we can never integrate. That's why we have the emotional range of a child and the instability of a terrified child, because that part of us hasn't been integrated. So Wittgenstein said the following, and I used this quote in a video 2 years ago: you cannot enter any world for which you do not have the language. Think about that. That language is the language of emotion and feeling. If you are trapped in, what's he doing? Trapped in childhood trauma, that moment is carried within you and you're reliving it all the time. So come on, get your ass up here. I'm having a serious talk with myself here. So we carry that unintegrated, disintegrated, fragmented part of us inside, and it is the child. So we have to find that child and the honesty, the raw truth of our emotions and feelings, and we have to integrate them. We have to feel them, make that child a part of us and bring it into maturity, and that is the truth. And that gives us a greater emotional range and stability, because we can feel. We're present. And I said a few videos ago, change comes much more easily then, because we're not disassociated. We're coming into wholeness. We're coming into presence. We are inhabiting ourselves. And when we inhabit ourselves, we have the faculty of our full attention. You can say, here I am. Okay, what do I need to do? I need to stop doing the things I do that are dishonest, emotionally dishonest. Because when we're hiding from the truth of our own feelings and all that pain and trauma, we're dishonest. We're dishonest with ourselves, we're dishonest with other people, and we tolerate dishonesty in others because we don't want to see it in ourselves. We tolerate other people's dishonesty. Come here. Get. Come on. I'm gonna give back a very muddy dog to the owner. Yeah, we tolerate dishonesty in others. That's why we make poor choices, because we don't really understand the basis upon which we are making those decisions, because we're not connected to the truth of how we really feel. We're looking for solutions rather than going into the wound and saying, oh, this is painful. This is how I feel. So that's what it's all about, truth. And because we're born in... I've got to disentangle this dog. 1 sec. Come here. Noodle. He's misbehaving a little bit because he knows that my attention is elsewhere. Come on. Oh, he's done it again. Come here. Oh, God. Sorry. Right, okay, I'm going to concentrate now. So when we're born into trauma, when I look at my own childhood, my own life, what was the most confusing to me were the lies that adults told. That's the most confusing thing, I think, for us, and that's what creates dissonance. When the caregiver is the abuser, they say they love you, or they probably don't, but they say one thing and do another, and it is so confusing. So what is the essence of what creates dissonance within us is that we're born into relationships with people who have a corrupted relationship with truth. They have forgotten what truth is, so they lie to themselves. And when you're born into deceit, adult complex emotions, deceit, guilt, shame, disdain, contempt, self-hate, you know, how are you supposed to make sense of that as a child? I was born into it, and I remember just being utterly terrified because I could not make sense of what was going on. But I remember a time before I lost myself where I still was connected to truth, before the terror took hold, really, and I forgot myself, and I just had to protect myself and just created a shell to hide behind, around 7 or 8. So, you know, what is our way back to stability and reclaiming our life and reclaiming our will, our ability to make choices? It is truth. How do you really feel? What is that essential truth within you, rooted in those experiences that you simply cannot integrate because they're too painful? But integrate them you must. You must. Slowly, gently, piece by piece. It doesn't have to be catastrophic like it was for me. But that, you know, the truth is that, come on, that catastrophic breakdown that I experienced was just the beginning, and I'm still processing stuff piece by piece, gently. But it's much, much, much easier. It's after those episodes of intense self-hate and confusion, desperation, finding my feet again happens very, very quickly. So I'm beginning to have the faculty of my attention, my will, and I think you have to get to that point where you start saying, yeah, fuck, I know what happened to me, I know how that has ruled my life, but I see it clearly now, and I see who I became as a consequence of what happened to me. And when you see it, you have to change. You have to change. Otherwise you're not taking responsibility for your life. You're not saying, right, you know, my life needs to change. I need to change. It doesn't matter what happened. What matters is the quality of my life now. Can I find it within me, the strength, the will to begin to change, to begin to open to what I really feel and reclaim my life, a life that was stolen. Because you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. I'll tell you what I experienced in my life. 20 years of trying to kill myself with drugs, slowly, sometimes quickly. I had more seizures than I can remember. You know, lying in my own waste and vomit. And I handled that. I handled it. I survived it. I survived violence, self-harm, eating disorders. And I am lucky to be alive. Very lucky. But and I know there are many people that watch my videos that have probably been through similar things. You can handle that and still get up and still go through the motions. You can find the strength to heal. But it requires feeling. It requires feeling. That's it. It requires you to feel that pain. And I think that's it. That's it. That's what I want to say in this video. Honesty. Truth. I will say this actually before I go. Truth is terrifying. It is terrifying. Because, especially for us, you know, we live a life of falsehood because we're pretending, we're coping, and we are dishonest with ourselves. And so when you start to seek the truth, to love the truth, it is painful because you direct that clarity against yourself and you can see how much you need to change and hold yourself to account and truth is terrifying. And that's why most people choose delusion. So, you know, if you can transmute the trauma and despair of what you felt in your life and turn that into fuel for presence, fuel for truth, we're the lucky ones. What is he doing? It's because I'm ignoring him, so I better pay him attention. Okay, so use that pain for fuel, and then, you know, we come into presence, and our presence is something powerful because we have survived. That's why, you know, maybe that's why we're here. We're given this task just to transmute suffering, not just for ourselves, but for other people. You know? Okay. He's really playing up, so I'm going to pay him some attention. Who's this? Getting tangled up again. Ooh! Okay. I hope all that made sense. And I'll see you soon. Bye. Hey, I'm Sam. So this is 3 days later. I'm in the same place, same path, with a different dog. This wee furry fellow is Romeo, and he does not like the mud. I'm just minding him for a few hours for a friend when she goes for lunch with her friends for Christmas. So he's very cute. Okay, so come on, sausage. I wanted to talk about something I said in the last video. So I made that video on Wednesday, and I've watched it a few times just to see if it made sense. And you know, I'm just thinking aloud. So quite often, especially when I speak passionately, you know, we make shortcuts in our own thoughts, and so I thought I'd say a few more words, and I might do this more often, but I'll talk about that in the intro, which I'll do after this video, maybe when I get to the bottom of the hill by the waterfall. Okay, so I said something towards the end of that video. I talked about, you know, our presence has power, and I want to talk about that because it's something that I'm beginning to understand. Okay, how can I say this? If anybody examined themselves in the crippling self-consciousness that we live with as individuals whose identity formed as a consequence to persistent stress and trauma, if anybody, even a person that isn't so traumatized, examined themselves in the same way, they would find something they hated. They would find some ugly, awful, grotesque flaw, because we are flawed. But because we grow up in that sort of dissonance that I spoke of in the last video, the dissonance where the truth of how things should be is corrupted, and we try and make sense of that by normalizing and say, okay, all right, how can I make sense of this abuse or this neglect or the contempt or whatever form the abuse you experience comes in? How can I make sense of it? Okay, I'll try and normalize it in myself. I'll try and rationalize it by blaming myself and saying it must be me, because this is just how things are outside me, so I must be wrong. And then we have a lifetime of distress and desperation and self-hate and that crippling apology and self-consciousness where we are trying to constantly examine our flaws and the things we hate in ourselves and try and fix them. So if anybody introspects deeply enough, they will see similar things, but to us they are embodied, they are magnified, they're embodied, they're hardwired in the structure of our brains. But our brains are malleable, so we can reform those structures over a long period of time. But so what I wanted to talk about is power, because we live with an apology, crippling self-doubt and self-hate. We're disconnected from the power of our presence, because we don't inhabit ourselves. We don't embody truth because we hate ourselves. Say, I'm not enough, there's something wrong with me. I will withhold my presence even from myself, because the idea of who I think I am is broken and fragmented, and in the core of my being I'm wrong. So, you know, how are you supposed to love yourself when you have that idea as your primary sense of self, your primary idea of who you are? You can't. So what happened to me was, to speak again about the breakdown I experienced, I got to a point where I could see that everything about me was either a manipulation of other people's perception, a plea for validation, an effort to control, and a coping strategy. So it was all of those things, everything about me. And when I could see who I was very, very clearly, the whole thing, the illusion of my sense of self, became completely transparent, and literally everything I did from that point on just caused more and more pain, because I could see the essence of where everything was rooted, and it was in that self-hate, that unworthiness, that desperation and fear. So, you know, that's when you realize how much you are in the way of your own freedom, because everything about your identity, it emerges from and is a consequence of years and years of stress and trauma. So what do you do at that point? You have to change. You cannot continue as you are. But it's so difficult, because everything about you needs to change. That's how it feels. Otherwise you're never going to be free. And that's also that realization, when I began to see that really clearly, that's when I started to self-harm, because I hated myself to such a degree. I mean, I self-harmed all my life in just abuse, self-abuse, you know, drugs, alcohol, treating myself appallingly, you know, terrible eating disorder for a long time, 15 years. But when I realized that it was me, who I was inseparable from the trauma, it was this plea for validation and safety. When I saw that, I hated myself, and that's when the self-harm became overt, and I started to physically harm myself. But you know, I went through this feeling of like, fuck, I've got to fix myself, I've got to change. And that's just another process of aggression against yourself. You know, it's another form of self-harm, another form of self-hate. And I think over a long period of time, because this happened 2 years ago, over a long period of time, I began to soften. And as I repeatedly came up against the same thought processes, the same loops of thought processes and behaviour, and I just got more and more and more exhausted. And in the end, I just surrendered and just said, and I'm still doing that, I still hit that wall, like I did in the last video when I was crying, or the last but one when I was crying, because I hit that wall of repetition and desperation again. And I just gradually over time have just given up. I just said, you know, I need to accept myself. I need to accept everything. And that's what I keep trying to sort of communicate in my strange poetic language, that, you know, we have to go into the wound. We have to feel the heartbreak. We have to see ourselves clearly. Flaws, desperation, self-hate, plea for validation, fear, heartbreak, all of it. We have to see it all. Mentalness. We have to see it all. And we have to just surrender and accept. Otherwise, you're just aggressively trying to change. You have to surrender and accept and say, okay, this is what I'm working with. This is who I am. This is what I'm dealing with. This is my experience. But is it really who I am? I should say that. You know, this is what is in front of me. Because our work, like I'm going to say in the intro, I think, our spiritual work is always before us. It's presented to us. Pay attention to that. Where am I feeling pain? What do I need to work on? And it's our own healing. It's a spiritual path. It's a spiritual path. Gets back to the point of this video. Power. Right. I think when we are living in that fragmented, broken self, the idea of who we are looking for power and control. But that's not the power I'm talking about. That power is rooted in fear and lack and insecurity. I'm talking about the power of acceptance. The power that was robbed from us when we were kids. The power that comes in surrender. The power that comes in acceptance. The power of feeling that heartbreak as deeply as you can, as truthfully as you can. Accepting yourself. The power of acceptance. I am here. I am here. In this strange place. In this strange, strange place. And I don't need to defend myself because I know who I am. I know my flaws. I know what happened to me. I know I'm mental sometimes. I know I'm desperate sometimes. But I love myself. And I love the fact that I have this opportunity to transmute my suffering into something meaningful and helpful for other people. And that's the power I'm talking about. If I'm getting to this clearly, I'm not sure I am. The power of accepting what is. The power of not needing to manipulate others to make you feel safe. The power of not needing to control overtly, aggressively. The power of being able to make a choice. Being able to make a choice, not rooted in hope or fear. The power of being able to just say, okay, you be you and I'll be me. You know, the power of acceptance. The power of coming back to the truth of who you are, the truth you've denied your whole life because you did not want to feel the pain. And our presence has power, as I said in the first video, because we have survived. Because we have survived. There's nothing wrong with calling ourselves survivors. We go from survivors to thrivers. But there's nothing wrong with calling yourself a survivor. It's part of your history. And like I said in the last video, most people, whether they're damaged or not, choose delusion. They choose delusion. We can't. We have to do the spiritual work to heal, just to be able to occupy our presence in the world. Say, here I am. And so think of this, of the work that you have to do to heal. Once you get your teeth into that, it's addictive. You know, embodying yourself truthfully in the power of your presence, it's addictive. And so every opportunity something comes up, another pattern that I repeat, another thought of self-hate, another stupid thing that I do out of desperation, it's an opportunity. Okay, I'm not going to do that this time, I'm going to do something different. It gets addictive. So our presence has power, because you need to know the truth in yourself. That's why, you know, I had to detransition. Once I started on this journey of healing, it's completely incompatible for me to stay as a transitioned male, because it's a fucking lie. My presence in the world there is disruptive because I'm lying about what and who I am. So I have to detransition, and I'm going to talk about that in the next video, because I've got a date for my mastectomy now. So yeah. Your presence in the world is vital, it's important, it's essential. So every painful episode, every repetitive habit, every desperate thought, like I said in the last video, it's fuel. It's fuel for the fire within you that brings you towards greater clarity and a more intimate relationship with truth. So listen, I'll tell you something else as well. After the last video, when I talked about truth, that was only 3 days ago, every time I talk about truth, the universe visits me more intimately and says, okay, you're talking about truth, let's see how truthful you really are. And I have a good 24, 48 hours of self-examination where I say, you know what, how truthful am I? And I get to see the remaining lingering delusions and bullshit I hold on to in my own head, and I see it. So it's a painful process, and we are in a metaphysical conversation with the intelligence behind everything, the intelligence that gives us this opportunity to become a contributing member of the great play. So if you're not doing the work, if you're not prepared to do your very best to participate in a meaningful way, in a constructive way, then why will you ever be trusted with any real power to affect the lives of others? You know, if you're in it for yourself all the time, you're not going to be allowed to participate fully. So it comes in time when you show yourself to be not a selfish, egotistical maniac, which I was when I was younger. So as I change, as I, you know, confront my own delusions and where I'm not being truthful in myself, I do feel much, much more connected, and I'm helped all the time. I'm helped all the time. I'm not doing this alone. I am not doing this alone. I want to be clear about that. I'm not doing this alone. I ask for help in my prayers every night, and I am helped. I am helped. I'm given strength, I'm given clarity, and meaningful relationships enter my life when I'm ready. And so, you know, that's what's waiting for us all, really, because this place is a training ground for something beyond, something that comes after. And the mechanism of our schooling, of our tutelage, is suffering. So that's it. Oh God, I think that was a bit of a rant. I've had too much coffee this morning. I listen to myself when I'm talking, I'm thinking, fuck, is this making sense? Okay, I hope that made sense. I hope there was something in there of value. And I'm coming to the bottom of the hill, and this little boy is very keen to get home. So I'll just do an intro and string these 2 videos together and publish them. Okay, thank you for watching. Thank you for all your support. And thank you for letting me know that my very raw, very haphazard, sense-making effort actually helps you. So thanks so much, because we're in it together.